First, I'll go to the middleware folder and create an auth.go for authentication related middlewares and sub.go for subscription related middlewares. In auth.go, I'll put a blank is authenticated middleware, and in sub.go, I'll put a blank is subscribed middleware. I'll also add a config.go and define a Gumroad response structure that we'll use to serialize the Gumroad API response that we query later on. And if you remember, Gumroad is the service that we'll use to create subscriptions for our service. So let's start with this is authenticated, since it is relatively less convoluted. We'll check the default session for a profile entry in this function. And if our session does not have a profile entry in it, then we'll decide that the user is not logged in, and we'll redirect the user to the login page. Otherwise, we'll allow the request to proceed with context.next. And that's all there is to it actually. And for the is subscribed middleware, we are going to interact with the Gumroad API. And for that, we'll need our Gumroad product ID and a Gumroad access token to query things that are related to our product. And you can fetch them from your Gumroad products console. And again, we are going to provide them to our application as environment variables. So if any of these variables are not defined, we are going to log the failure and exit the application because we need them for our application to function basically. Then we'll check our session. If the user is not logged in, we cannot display the subscription form because we don't know who the user is. So we'll redirect them to the login page first. Then we read the user's profile and see if the user is marked as subscribed. And if the user is subscribed, then we'll let them proceed to the protected resource by calling context.next. And otherwise, if we are not sure about the subscription status of the user, then we'll get the user's email from their profile and then query the subscriber endpoint of the Gumroad API, providing the user's email as part of the query string. And then we read the response into a byte array and parse the response as a Gumroad response object. And for any kind of failure that we face, we just log an error, but let the user proceed to the restricted content. And that's a risk that I'm willing to take, because if you think from a business perspective, if there is a problem with the Gumroad integration, it's not the user's fault, it's our problem. And we cannot punish the user by not showing them the content just because our integration is a little funky. So I'll err on the side of being permissive and let the user in if there's a problem with our integration layer. Next, we check the subscriber count, and if the user is subscribed, we should get a non-zero number, typically 1 because it's a single user that's subscribed to a single service. And if we get 0 as the subscriber count, then we can be certain that the user is not subscribed to our product, and we can then redirect the user to the subscription page. Otherwise, we save the user's subscription status to the session so that we don't have to query it again. And then we allow the user's request with this context.next call. So this was is subscribed, and is not subscribed is almost identical, like a mirror image of is subscribed with a bunch of logic inversions. So instead of refactoring the common parts between those two methods, honestly, I'll be a lazy potato and I'll just copy everything in this is subscribed function into an is not subscribed function and change a bunch of places that needs to be sorted out. Here, if the user is subscribed, we'll redirect them to the default page because we don't want to display a subscription form to an already subscribed user. And if the user has more than 0 subscribers, we again redirect them to the default page, but we also want to update the user's session as well. And if the user is not subscribed, we allow the user to pass through to the subscription form with context.next.